Now, here's Michael Smerconish.
I love auctions. I've always loved auctions. The better in person, but even online auctions. And I've had some funny experiences, some quote unquote winning and losing experiences. Coincidentally, just yesterday, my wife and I were in Center City, Philadelphia, and we were walking down Chestnut Street, adjacent to Rittenhouse Square. And I was heartbroken when I looked up at the window of the Freeman Fine Arts Gallery and saw a notice in the window that said they're moving. Because so often we've gone to auctions at Freeman's in Philadelphia, and it's such a unique setting, this cavernous room, an elevator that is hand operated. I mean, there's just some like nooks and crannies to the space that could never be replicated. And it breaks my heart that they're moving, but thank God, apparently not going out of business. Recently, I participated but did not win anything in a Sotheby's auction for some Grateful Dead ephemera. I took note of the fact that Guernsey's, which is one of the most established auction houses in the world, has a very unique auction upcoming. And when I saw notice of this, I said, we have got to get Arlan Ettinger back on the program to talk about what is going on January 28th, because Guernsey's will be conducting an unprecedented auction of historic objects relating to the life of Nelson Mandela. This is Arlan Ettinger. Thank you so much for coming back to the program.
Michael, nice to be here. And before you ask me anything, I got to tell you that 3-4 years ago, we sold Jerry Garcia's Wolf guitar for $3.5 million. Money went to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Grateful Dead, eat your heart out.
$3.5 million for that guitar.
Yep. We could do a whole show just on that, on how we sold it initially 15 years ago on behalf of a homeless man who was named in Jerry's will to receive that guitar and the other guitar known as Tiger. And why was he in the will? Because he was the luthier, the guitar maker who built those guitars for Jerry a quarter century earlier, and Jerry remembered him in his will. And
I love it. In my next life professionally, I want to come back as you. I have always, to me, it is such a real valuation of market value, what you do for a living. And you also see so much cool stuff. Arlan, people must watch the conversation you and I are having right now live on my YouTube channel to see what surrounds you. What's behind you? Do describe.
Over this shoulder, my left, that shirt is known as a Madiba shirt, worn by Nelson Mandela upon his release from prison. He wanted to separate himself from the sort of gray-suited politicians of apartheid South Africa. Someone gave him one of these colorful shirts. It became sort of a trademark, and millions of people around the world got to wearing shirts just like that one. And I'm showing, for anyone who can see it, here's a picture of Nelson Mandela wearing this colorful beige and multi-patterned shirt over my left shoulder. Over here, this red and sort of tan-colored piece of fabric, this blanket, which, if you will, I don't know if you can read it, and maybe you're seeing it backwards there. I'll read it to you. Presented to Mr. Nelson Mandela, former president of the Republic of South Africa, by Barack Obama, President of the United States, and Mrs. Michelle Obama, June 2013. That was a gift from the United States to Nelson Mandela. Above that, we have this simple charcoal drawing of a chain known as Breaking Free, signed by Nelson Mandela, but really symbolic of the life he lived, how this man who was the first Black to start a law firm in South Africa becomes a renegade, is hunted down because he opposed apartheid, spends 27 years in jail, finally becomes free and goes from prisoner to presidency in 4 years, unprecedented, and one of the most beloved human beings to ever walk this planet, and a person who's freed the lives of countless millions around the world who remember him for the wonderful man he was.
So in 1 month, you are auctioning those items and more, this personalty that once belonged to Nelson Mandela. Are there reserves set for those items? And if not, what do you expect they'll command?
You know, there are no reserves in this auction, which for those who aren't familiar with the term reserve, it's a preset minimum under which something will not be sold. In other words, everything is going to be sold for whatever the top price is. And I can tell you, after running auctions for 46 years, that trying to guess as what something will bring when there's no precedent for that is impossible. You know, you and I could be looking at the most valuable Picasso painting in the world, still relatively easy to estimate because there have been thousands of Picasso paintings before that have been sold at auction. But when you look at a shirt like this, or you look at, I'm now holding up a bronze fist cast from the hand of Nelson Mandela. What could that possibly be worth? God only knows, and we'll see. And that's what makes an auction so exciting. You know, you come, you take your chances, and some things will bring more than anybody ever believed, and some things may be viewed as a bargain. That's life.
If you and I had had this conversation before the Wolf guitar that belonged to Jerry Garcia had been sold, would you have said, "Hey, Michael, I think this could go for $3.5 million"?
I don't think I would have said that. I try to stay out of saying things that I think may happen, but you never know. I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know that.
Okay, so what is the provenance of the personalty that surrounds you?
The items are coming from two directions. Most of the items in the auction are coming from his family, and it doesn't get better than that. Directly from his home, from his children. And every object will come with a certificate stating that. The other items, one of which I'm going to talk about in a second, come from a man named Christo Brand. Christo Brand, at age 18, was a young recruited jailer, a prison guard. He grew up in a farming family, not far from the hateful Robben Island prison, and was looking for work, and there weren't many options, and he was recruited as a prison guard, was told that he would be guarding some of the most dangerous people in the world. On his first day on the job, he's put outside the cell of Nelson Mandela, only to find that Mr. Mandela was a kindly, thoughtful person who almost overnight was more concerned for the well-being of the guard than the other way around. These two men, as unlikely as it was, became close friends. And many, many years later, when Obama was eventually freed, at that point,
Mandela.
Mr. Mandela, Mr. Brand had become the warden, left his position, and the two men remained lifelong friends to the day Mandela died. And from Christo Brand, we have some extraordinary objects, including the exercise bicycle that Mandela used in his prison cell, a tennis racket that Mandela led a prisoner revolt. The prisoners were being forced to work 7 days a week, breaking limestone and putting it in sacks, which was a brutal, think of that, breaking it with picks and shovels, loading sacks with limestone. You get a little cut and it becomes infected. They're doing this 7 days a week. Mandela protested on behalf of all the prisoners. They get told, okay, you don't want to do this. You spend every day in your cells. Mandela reaches out to the International Red Cross, and as a result of that, a very basic tennis court was created outside the cells. Mandela was given a tennis racket. We have that racket. But perhaps most important of all is something, for those who can see me, I'm going to hold up a picture of it because it's not a very large object, but it's very, very significant. And what I'm holding up is a very plain looking skeleton key. And this skeleton key is the very key that was used both to first imprison Mandela and in the end eventually free him. And by freeing him, freeing countless millions of people around the world. I'm holding the picture. The key is currently in a museum being released to us just shortly after the auction for sale.
For sale,
Absolutely.
I mean, someone will literally own the key that was used to lock the jail cell at Robben Island for Nelson Mandela.
Correct.
I mean, how in the world could you ever put a price on that?
My point exactly. How do I know? I'm sitting here looking at you, and I don't want to look like a smart aleck. Oh, that's going to bring X amount. God only knows what it will bring. I have no idea. It's extraordinary, and we are humbled to be in the position of representing something as treasured as that.
Look, Arlan, the family, I get it now. The family, they come to you and they say, we would like to sell these items. I'm sure there are people listening to us or watching us who say that key really needs to stay in a museum. I can't begrudge the family for selling it, nor can I begrudge you. It's not your job to make that determination. People come to you and they say, sell this, you sell it.
I find that through the years, things end up in good places. They just do. For example, many years ago, we represented an elderly woman, a retired school teacher from Philadelphia. You mentioned Philadelphia. Her name was Mary, cousin Mary to fans of John Coltrane, who was a young boy, grew up in the South, makes his way coming up north, stops at his cousin's home in Philadelphia, a modest row house, where he spends a few teenage years before moving on to New York and becoming famous. So as I'm speaking with his widow, who lives out in California, Alice Coltrane, she said, why don't I detour before going back to New York, meet cousin Mary in Philadelphia. I meet with her. When I'm with her, she excuses herself for a minute, comes back into the room with a dusty cardboard shoebox and said, if you'd like this for the auction we were preparing for, the jazz auction, take it. And what it was a roll of paper that John Coltrane wrote as sheet music as a teenager, which was treasured paper. We brought that woman and her family to New York, where the auction was held at Lincoln Center. She received a standing ovation 4 or 5 times during the course of the evening for safeguarding that material. Much of it was sold to museums, including the Smithsonian, as well as wealthy collectors. And in the end, collectors tend to gift material to the appropriate place, whether it happens today or 5 years from today. So, and the woman ended up with $1 million, which put her, helped her clearly through the rest of her days. So
right. I mean, your point being that just because this item is about to be sold doesn't necessarily mean, in the case of the key, for example, that it won't be visible to the public at some point in the future. Hey, I have a question that I want to ask the president of Guernsey's. What if someone who is aware of this auction?
No.
What if someone who's aware of this auction right now says, Arlan Ettinger, I'll go X dollars on the key. I take it you present that to the family and there's an opportunity there to make a deal, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. It would be the family's option to accept that offer or just stay the course and take it to auction.
Arlan, is this an in-person live auction or only online January 28th?
COVID really changed the auction world, which was heading in the direction of non-participation in person anyway. So people can participate this auction via liveauctioneers.com or invaluable.com, 2 of the largest bidding platforms on earth, as well as coming directly to us where they could be on the telephone. We're not having this as a live event, regrettably, because I'm old-fashioned and I love doing live events. When we did the first Jerry Garcia auction, we did it at Studio 54, where I had to be the only person in the room who wasn't drunk or stoned, but someone had to run the show.
Shame on you.
Yeah. No, this is...
oh my God, this is awesome.
And
this is really awesome.
We'll be able to view the items in person by visiting us here before the auction in our New York office.
Okay, final question, and thank you for being so gracious with your time. What's the opening bid on the key to Mandela's jail cell? Do you know that?
I'm struggling with that right now because we don't want to set some bar. Let the bidding start wherever it starts. It's not where it starts.
But you got to start somewhere. I mean, like what's the number? 100,000, 500,000? What do you think?
Somewhere in between there. Probably probably $250,000.
Yeah, 250 sounds like the right number. And then in what increments? And I know I won't hold you to this, but I'm just kind of curious. Would they be 20,000, 25,000, 50,000 increments?
10,000.
10,000.
Yeah, we have a standard. I'm not remembering it now, but probably 10,000. Yeah.
That was really interesting. Thank you so much for displaying the items.
And listen, I thank you. You just raised your pieces of paper there. I quoted on the screen, so I'll take that as the first bid.
Yeah, that was my paddle. Paddle number 1 just went up for 2. I feel secure giving you a $250,000 bid on the key without permission on the home front because I don't think I'd be getting it for $250,000. So sure, you can take that as a.
Lest you didn't know this is being recorded. Should anybody tell you that?
Happy holidays. Thank you for being here. That was really interesting.
My pleasure. Take care.